Hey, what's going on, everybody? I know it's a late night for Ministry Monday, but I was kind of sitting back and trying to think of and pray a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. Um, and I really don't ever know who all is going to watch this or however many people or however many different people is going to check this out. But I thought I'd take a little bit of time and sort of, if you're kind of wondering about who I am, how I became a Christian, want to just take a chance to give my testimony. Um, if I was like, probably a lot of people. I think, around 13 or 14, somewhere right around in there. Whenever I first got saved um, at a church that's in my hometown here in Winder, um, we had service one night, and something just kind of pulled me, and um, I, when the preacher called, I went down and kneeled down and prayed the sinner's prayer and put my trust at that point that I did believe in Jesus Christ. Um, and the unfortunate thing, it happens to a lot of us when we're teenagers that we do that, and then all of a sudden we kind of run off the tracks a little bit. We stick with it for a little while, and then we slide off of it. And then it was probably at that point, it was years later before I really rededicated my life and myself to serving. And that was the key point to me, was that I wasn't just saved and I knew that I wasn't gonna, you know, I was saved and I just wasn't gonna go to hell at that point. It was more of, well, now I'm to the point to where I want to actually serve than more than anything. So, um, whenever I went through high school, before all this happened, whenever I went through high school, um, I ended up falling in love with my wife. We dated throughout high school. And um, we ended up getting married after high school. So I dated and fell in love and married my high school sweetheart. And we had a lot of friends, and we all hung out, and um, it was at that point where, as we were hanging out, that I had started really drinking a lot. It started out to a point to where, well, it was more like, social gatherings, kind of hanging out and, going to parties, going to bars, um, and, stuff like that. And then it slowly, as the years went on, it developed into a point to where um, it was a lot during the weekend. I couldn't watch a sporting event, or we would just go watch sporting events, or anytime we went out, I was I was pretty much had a bottle in my hand. And it was never to the point to where I was drinking one or two. It was typically six, eight, 10, 12 at that point. That's kind of where I got to. Well, as time progressed on, um, I was at that point I was working a third shift at my work, and it got to a point to where uh, the drinking was part of it. But at that point, there was a I haven't told a lot of people this, but there was an over the counter, basically speed, uh, something that you could take to help keep you up. Well, I got to started taking those, and it was to a point where I'd just take a few at a time just to kind of get through the night. Nothing really illegal. It was just something that I took. Um, well, that turned into a point to where, just like with the alcohol, And then a lot of things that we get addicted to, we end up abusing it. And you can abuse anything, whether it's, pills, pot, alcohol, food, really anything. So it got to a point to where I was popping about 12 at a time, honestly. And to be honest, there's a lot of times I'm surprised that my heart didn't just give out from beating so fast, and just so I'm lucky to be alive, really, honestly, if I had to put it at that point. So the drinking continued, of course. I never gave that up. I finally stopped with everything else, but the drinking continued. And then it got worse. It got to a point to where it was every night. Used to it was during the weekends, hanging out, having fun, or what I considered having fun anyway. And then it just got to where it was every day. Every day I had to have one or two or three. And then if it got to a point, well, I was about 6 to 8 almost every night. And then the weekends were even worse. So as things progressively got worse, and there was some hard times there for me and my wife, because she had to deal with me, right? Somebody has to whenever you're at that point. So she was having to deal with me, and some pretty rough nights for her, no doubt, having to take care of me. And during this whole situation, we were trying to have another child. And it never happened. We ended up having about 4 miscarriages along the way, and it was just really taking its toll, emotionally and on her physically as well. But that never stopped me from drinking. I kept on and kept on with that. So eventually we ended up finding this church that we started going to, that I had some friends that were going to it. And as we were going there, one day I ended up, basically to put it, I had the Holy Ghost, come upon me, and it started convicting me about what I was doing, the path that I was on. And I'll remember it like it was yesterday. We went to a Super Bowl party, and any other time I'd just be tearing them up, especially Super Bowl. I'd be just chugging them down one after another. We went to the party. I sat down, started watching the game, and my wife sat down, and she started talking to me, and she said, "You're not drinking?" I just looked at her and I said, "I'm done. I just quit." And that was it. My little one's coming out here. So that was really it. I mean, I just kind of let it go at that point. I made a commitment at that point that I was done with it. So from that point, it might have been weeks later, but we at that point found out that we were going to have another kid. She was pregnant. And it dawned on me at that point about how God was working on me. Me personally. I can't say that's for everybody, but I do know it was how God was working on me. We were trying for a long time to have another child, and I couldn't understand. I didn't understand why God would not let us have another child. Well, it came to a point to where I understood the fact that it wasn't that I was waiting on God. It was God that was waiting on me to get my life straight. And once I did, all of a sudden it just happened. It just happened. I mean, right away we found out we were having another child. And it was the most amazing thing in the world. And then God, with all of his unbelievable humor, right after we had Bella, our second child, it was months later, we found out that we were pregnant again. At that point, I was asking God to put the brakes on. I was like, all right, I'm done, dude. But, you know, at that point, we remained in church for a while. We ended up moving over into another church. And then I finally gave in to what a lot of people were talking to me about, as far as, you know, hey, look, you need to be in some sort of ministry work. You need to, you know, you've got this unbelievable gift of being a preacher and to speak. And I brushed it off a lot of times, but, you know, when you know that God's affirming something in your life, usually you have more than one person that will come up to you and tell you that. I just want to put that out there, in case somebody is telling you something. God will use a few people, and I say a few people because he will make sure it's not just one, not just two, but he will use multiple people to affirm and say, hey, I'm telling you this is from me. So at that point, this is kind of gets us up to speed. You know, it's been an absolute blessing, an absolute privilege to be in ministry work and to be working with, I've had a great opportunity to work with many youth over the years, to help out in so many different ways in ministry. And really, I owe everything that I am right now to Christ. Everything. I wasn't strong enough to lay the bottle down. I'll be honest, not by myself. I tried it over the years, and I would always go back to it, because to me that was my way of escape. If I needed to get away from life, that was the way I did it. I'm not sure what your way of escape may be. People have different ways to get away from life because it gets so hard, and I get it. I do. But that was my way, and it became a problem. I was doing things that I normally wouldn't do, acting in ways that I would never act, and saying things to people that I would never say. And usually it was the ones that I loved the most that I would say the most hurtful things. But I can look back on that now and see where I came from and see where I am now. And it's the most amazing thing that I can even think of, that, you know, that God would pick someone at the bottom of the barrel and use them. And depending on where you're at in this point in your life, you may feel the same way. You may feel like, man, there's no way God would use me. I'm telling you right now, I am a walking, living testimony that Christ will take and use anybody, just like he used the Apostle Paul. You know, when his name was Saul, he was the most low-down person that you could possibly think of. But Christ came to him and he wanted to use him, and he did. So I want to pray for you right now that if you don't know Christ, that you get to know him, and that he will help you through any issues that you're going through. Well, that's about all I have for you this week on Ministry Monday. I just want to be sure to sit down and lay out my testimony, and you have an idea of who I am, where I have come from, and whenever I'm talking, that, you know, yeah, you know, this cat had some issues, and I did. I had some issues, and you know, Christ helped me through them, and he'll help you through them. Much love to everybody. God bless, and have a good night.